The Rams are going to cut these two players very soon. Should they? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and drop any questions you want to see featured on the show. We're answering one later in the show, a little mini mailbag episode later. My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 Sports, SI, Dodgers Nation, now the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just finished his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, can Matthew Stafford win MVP next season? Who will the Rams be cutting soon? We got some cap casualty talk, but we're going to start today's show with the hype surrounding the 2024 Los Angeles Rams. And is it getting a little bit overboard? Because, Travis, we've got two NFL experts, two analysts. We got Jeremy Fowler and Field Yates. Both have the Rams in the Super Bowl next season, and it's not winning the Super Bowl, but they have the Rams losing. Fowler has the Rams losing to the Bills, and Yates, of course, has the Rams losing to Patty Mahomes, number 1-5, going for the three-peat, the Pat trick. So I'm getting a T-shirt made for that. I'm getting a T-shirt made for that. But too much, too soon?
I think it's probably a little bit too much, and I think for the Rams fans, it probably isn't too soon, right? I think that this is a team that, look, it changes so fast, and like I said to you earlier this week, T-Mac, the everydayers will remember this. I am making a commitment to myself and to you and to all of our regular listeners, all of our everydayers, that I'm going to try to remind myself that nobody knows anything. Because every year we do this, right? We say, okay, the season ended less than a week ago, and we're trying to talk about who's going to be in the Super Bowl about 359 days from now. The Rams will be better. The Rams will be a team that is expected to make the playoffs. The Rams will be a team that if they get into the playoffs and lose in the first round like they did this year, it'll be considered a disappointment. If the Rams don't make a run, if they don't kick that window a little further wide open, then I think that it's been a disappointing year. Look, this is what the Rams do. They show up, they get good, they just miss, and then they all of a sudden get better after that. This is a year that if you're looking at Sean McVay's progression, this should be a pretty darn good year. It's get close, get there, and then fall out after that. This is a get there year. They have a quarterback. They have somebody to get to the quarterback. They have playmakers at both wide receiver and running back. They need to get better on the defensive side. But it's not a stretch to think that this is one of the 2 or 3 or 4 best teams in the NFC. And really, if that's what we all think they are, then saying that they're in the Super Bowl, that's winning one more game. That's just getting one more game underneath, and we know that the coach has the pedigree, that the organization has the pedigree, so it's incredibly optimistic, but I don't think it's so overblown that it's a pipe dream. Things have to go right, and they have to play well, but they've got the right people in the right spots.
Yeah, and that's it right there. One, you point out the NFC, not as great as we've seen in years past. It's wide open. If the Rams go on a run, you could absolutely see them cruising through the NFC. I mean, the 49ers, maybe the Eagles are better, the Cowboys are the Cowboys. But I do feel confident if they make the right moves this offseason. As far as who do they pick up in free agency with the draft capital that they have? Will they go and draft someone? Will they trade that pick? Will they pick up an edge rusher through free agency? Will you bring back Kevin Dotson? I mean, there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but I do think that it is a little bit time to recalibrate those expectations in a positive way, knowing that they did hit on all those draft picks last season, that you did have Puka Nacua emerge as a true threat, a guy that's going to supplement what they're not getting from Cooper Kupp at this stage of his career. But I do get a little weary when I start to see them this soon included in all these takes from all these analysts that they're not completely in the weeds on these teams. It's just they're all kind of parroting the same thing. Oh, the Rams have their first round picks in 2016. They have cap space. You have Matthew Stafford healthy. When they're all starting to kind of say the same thing, I'm like, wait a minute, but who are they drafting with that draft pick? Is said draft pick going to work out? Oh, what are they doing with that cap space? So I do think it's a little premature, but it still gets me excited. I love to hear the Rams include in national conversations.
I think you bring up a really good point, and that's that the NFC does not have a dominant team. I look, the Niners have been very good for about the last 5 or 6 years. They're in the NFC Championship game regularly. That we've seen them appear in the Super Bowl a couple of times under Kyle Shanahan. They're good, but look, this is the NFL. You don't stay at the top a super long time. I think that the market correction on the Niners and the regression to the mean is probably coming sooner than later for them. I don't know what's going on in Philadelphia. There seems to be something that doesn't work there for them. Like you mentioned, the Cowboys. Go ahead and place your bets on the Cowboys. I'll take everybody's action all the time. You know what I mean? I'm not sold on them at all. I think that the other teams that you have to look at is, what does it look like with Jordan Love with more confidence starting for his second full year? What does Minnesota look like if Kirk Cousins is fully healthy? What does somebody like Raheem Morris do in Atlanta? There's going to be a team that comes out of nowhere that's going to be like, wow, they're pretty good. The Rams are in that group. That now, again, we talk about this all the time. If you have a quarterback and a coach and some guys that can make some plays, you got a chance. And I think that's what it is, that get into that playoff picture, find a way to get maybe a home game, find a way to maybe get an upset somewhere along the line. It's not a stretch, but it's also not okay, we're right there. A few years ago, it felt like you were right on the doorstep. This is you're in the party, but you're not quite the team to beat. They're going to have to catch a couple of breaks, like you mentioned, with draft, with free agencies. They don't have to do what they did last year, but they also can't do what they did with Logan Bruss and Tutu Atwell. They're going to have to do somewhere in the middle of that where you're adding some guys that are impactful right away. But if you're just ranking the most important things, they've got the two most important things, coach and quarterback. That's going to take you a long way.
Yeah, you just stole the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say it's a quarterback and coaches league, and they have an elite coach and elite quarterback. And you start right there, you feel good about your chances. Also, I think there's a sense of urgency around this franchise, knowing Matthew Stafford's age, knowing Aaron Donald's age, knowing Kupp's age, knowing that, okay, we want to push those chips in the middle of the table one more time, try to squeeze another ring out of this core, and then we're going to feel really good about this run that we've been on. They're not satisfied just with one Super Bowl. They want multiple Super Bowls out of this run. And I do think that, look, you look at this Rams team, they did everything they needed to do in 2023 to springboard that momentum into 2024 with the success of the draft picks, with the healthy Stafford, with Donald looking like there's no signs of slowing down. Even though Kupp regressed, you found Puka Nacua. You just need to address those needs in the secondary, edge rusher, kind of fix that defense. How will the new coaches integrate into Sean McVay's system? So I think there are some questions, but look, it could be a situation where no one's talking about the Rams right now because they had a dreadful 2023 season like everyone expected them to. That didn't happen. They won 10 games in a rebuild year. They almost made it to the divisional round. So they overachieved, and I'm thinking Rams, Chiefs. I like that one. My sneaky pick, Rams, Texans. Sneaky pick is went way too early. I need one of those four. I need to knock one of those four teams off that haven't made it.
I like the Texans. That's an interesting. I'm going to keep, like I said from the very beginning, I'm going to keep picking Patrick Mahomes until Patrick Mahomes is no longer available to be picked. I just said that's one of the. This is the thing you put in the bank and you just collect, your 2% interest forever and ever. I'm just going to keep taking it. I'm just going to keep taking it until I can't take it anymore.
For sure. And then also point out the Niners, too. Yeah, they're great. Only two teams in NFL history have lost the Super Bowl and made it back, 70 Cowboys and 17 Patriots. So it's very unlikely. But you go with the Patrick. But that's coming up next. We are talking about cap casualties. Who will the Rams be cutting in the next couple of months? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, DoorDash. You know how much I love my DoorDash. I like DoorDash especially on an early weekend morning where maybe you were out a little bit late the night before and you're just feeling like maybe I don't want to go out that front door. You just want to have something brought in. DoorDash. Open up that DoorDash app on your phone because DoorDash is the all-in-one app for your everyday needs, from restaurants, groceries, flowers, gifts. So the next time you're running low on, well, just about anything, right? On dinner ideas, pet supplies, or you just don't even have the time or the want to leave the house, you can get so much more than you realize delivered right to your front door. For instance, maybe you didn't have a chance to get to the store and all of a sudden you look around, you're like, I got nothing here. DoorDash. Maybe your bar is missing an important item. DoorDash. Stock back up for the week ahead with all of your delivery options from DoorDash, right? So DoorDash, your door to more. Head to DoorDash app and get everything you need delivered, and you will enjoy every second. You don't have to do anything. Just sit right there and have it show up at your front door. Also, you know the show, you get a lot of in-depth analysis and hot takes, right? Well, let me give you the hottest take of the day. The best lineup in LA right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logic. They start off at the top with one of my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loan. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big-time money. Next up, they've got the exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment plans. And rounding out the lineup, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these guys, you could lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. I know. It is a very hot take, but seriously, no one could beat the lineup at Logic. So visit your local Logic branch right here in Los Angeles and surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you, or you can apply online in minutes at logicsbanking.com/car. That's LOGIX banking.com/car. Logix is a proud sponsor of For the Troops. For more information on the upcoming For the Troops Gala, visit www.forthetroops.org/event for more information.
And we are off and running here at Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And also, we want to just send a shout out to our everyday listeners out there still watching every single episode, listening to every single episode here in the offseason. Keep it up to date with your Los Angeles Rams. And you can be an everyday listener too. All you got to do is just watch and listen to every episode, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, we're talking cap casualties here in this second segment, and Joe Noteboom has been one of the more polarizing Rams players in the last couple of seasons. And really, if you just look at the money of it, he has a $20 million cap hit in 2024. That's a lot for a backup lineman. And there's really no reason for the Rams to keep him on the roster. He only has a $5 million in savings, in cap savings, but hey, that's $5 million you can use elsewhere.
Yeah, look, I think this could be one of these things that we like you, but we don't like you at this price. We like you, but if you want to stay, and we would like you to stay, we're going to have to come out to some agreement that works out a little bit better for us economically, because you're right. At that number, it doesn't make a lot of sense to pay somebody that amount of money to not play 17 games. That you're going to have to be a starting caliber player, and I think that we know that Joe Noteboom is not that, unfortunately. However, I want him on the team. You're gonna have to find a way to keep him on the team at a price that works that's more of a team friendly price. He knows LA. I don't know if the league is dying for him to be a starter somewhere else. And this has been a very valuable guy, much like with you, D-Mac, with Tutu, and that you've been on that. I kind of have a soft spot for Joe Noteboom, not as a starter, but as somebody that can kind of fill in on an as-needed basis. He was a big reason they won the Super Bowl. And remember, Andrew Whitworth went down for a period of time, and Joe Noteboom slid in there and was playing left tackle on a Super Bowl championship team. He played important games for them last year. I don't want him to make a lot of money and take it off of other guys' plates. Like you mentioned, you can spend it elsewhere. But I would love to at least throw it out there and see if there's a way to keep him on the team at a lower price, because I think he's a valuable piece. But he's also an expensive piece, and those two things don't go together.
Yeah, I mean, if you could talk yourself into the idea of keeping him and not cutting him, the case would essentially be, okay, you're basically got $15 million in dead money at that point, and you have to go out there and get a backup anyway, right? So, I mean, if you do think he can play that role, that depth role, a multi-position lineman that you can plug in at multiple positions, then I think, yeah, maybe go for it. But yeah, if you look at some of the void years and just kind of the way the contract is structured, it pretty much does make a lot of sense to move on. And I think for me, the big question is, even if you do keep him, do you stay healthy? I mean, he's 6 years into his NFL career. He's been 67 of 97 games, only had 31 starts. So, yeah, he's paid as a starter, so he shouldn't be. He shouldn't have that starter's role. I mean, your compensated one, you should definitely start, right? But I mean, if he's not going to do that, then I mean, do you really see the value in him? But the other obvious one, though, is Brian Allen. Brian Allen, $3.15 million in dead money, $4.9 million in cap savings. The team's going to save about $5 million with Brian Allen. I think this one's a no-brainer.
I do too. And this is another one that, you know, as a Rams draft pick, he's been here a long time. He's had some moments where he was a pretty good football player, but, you know, Coleman Shelton kind of grabbed that job and held on to it and has become the Rams starting center. This is the guy that they're one of the few guys that the Rams re-signed last year to bring back. So obviously they like him a lot. And with the numbers that you just laid out right there, D-Mac, this just feels like one that he's going to have to play somewhere else next year. That finding that backup center is probably something that you could do through the draft. Maybe that's something you could do through free agency. I would be surprised to see him back next season for sure.
Yeah, and he really just hasn't been the same. I mean, he was a little bit different when Corbett was kind of propping him up a little bit. You saw his skills start to decline. But yeah, I mean, at those prices, I think Noteboom's a little more of a complicated one. Allen's a more obvious one. And really outside of that, you're not going to see them move off of Donald or Stafford or any of those guys. And anyone out there saying Cooper Kupp should be cut or they should move on for Kupp, I mean, it really doesn't make sense at all when you look at his deal. I mean, if you would trade Kupp, that would only save $2.74 million unless the deal is made after May. So it's just not going to happen. He's a fully guaranteed $15 million base salary, fully guaranteed $5 million on the roster bonus, $29.8 million cap hit on the books no matter what. So they're not moving off of Cooper Kupp is my point here.
Yeah, I think with Cooper Kupp in particular, I'm of two minds. One is I think he's going to be a lot better next year than he was this most recent season. I think that there were some lingering health issues that really prevented him from being his best self. He was too good of a player for too long to have a year like we saw a year ago where he really wasn't the guy that we've come to know. So I'm optimistic that this was more health related than anything else. That's the first thing that I think of. The second thing I think of is not necessarily cutting him or trading him, but let's keep an eye on what it is, right? Let's keep an eye on that production. Let's find a way that if he continues to, do what happens to every athlete, and that is decline as you get a little older, then you need to figure out how much he needs to be featured. You need to figure out how much you want to slide onto Puka's plate. You need to figure out whether or not a third wide receiver this season is a priority, whether or not you want to kind of go bargain hunting the way that they did last year and hope to catch lightning in a bottle with a DeMarcus Robinson or something like that. Because if he is as inconsistent and as unimpactful as he was for the majority of the season, Puka's not going to be able to do it by himself. And the more that Kupp puts on tape that's just not the old Kupp, the harder it gets for Puka. So I think those two things are obviously very different, but two things you keep in mind going into the season.
Yeah, and it's a very different position, wide receiver and quarterback, but just look at everyone writing off Matthew Stafford after the year he had 2 years ago, saying he was washed, saying he was too old, and he came back and they kept him healthy, and he was back to being an extremely productive player that really led this team to the playoffs. And Cooper Kupp, 30, he's going to turn 31 in June. Of course, that is kind of on the wrong side of 30, of course, if you're a receiver. So he's not aging as gracefully as Donald and Stafford is. But I think you made the best point is that how do you optimize him at this stage of his career, knowing you're going to keep him, knowing that there's intangible benefits too. Him being a leader, a culture builder, what he does as a blocker. I think if you get him fully healthy, he can still produce for this team. And I still want Cooper Kupp on the Los Angeles Rams. But coming up next here on Locked On Rams, we could take in one of your questions. Will Matthew Stafford win MVP? What will it take? And also, Puka Nacua shares a hilarious story about Aaron Donald. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? You ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue. It is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system, and the 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Also, the 2024 Nissan Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. You can tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Nissan Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Travis, first I want to share this little story I saw. Puka Nacua was on a podcast, and he talked about being a rookie at OTAs, and he's in the Rams weight room, and he's got the Theragun on his arm, and all of a sudden he hears, "Move!" And he looks back, and it was Aaron Donald. And Aaron Donald was reaching for the 180-pound dumbbells. And apparently Puka Nacua did not move enough, so he told him to move again. And then Puka apparently ran out of the weight room and pretended like he had to go to the bathroom. He said he was terrified, and he didn't come back. So that just shows you. Aaron Donald, man, that's how you lead by example. 180-pound dumbbells.
All right, so I'll tell you a quick Aaron Donald story. We went to go shoot some commercials on the field at SoFi Stadium for my radio job on ESPN 710 here in Los Angeles. We went into SoFi one afternoon, and we were going to shoot some spots down on the field and you know do what you do to promote the radio show. So we're down there. We're down there for about an hour or so. And as we're walking back off the field through the tunnel, there's this person getting out of a car underneath, and you kind of do it. Wait, what? It's Aaron Donald, right? And he's down there with I think some of his friends or family, or I'm not quite sure who it was, but it was the first time that I had been standing within 10 feet of him. Trust me, when he tells you to move, you're going to move. There is no, like, you look at it and you're like, that can't be a human being. Like that people don't look like that. People don't have that sort of muscle. They're not that big, that unbelievably fit and strong and be able to move like that. It was just, it didn't add up. It was like seeing the Incredible Hulk in real life. And so if Puka Nacua ran to the bathroom to stay away from Aaron Donald out of fear, I get it, because I just kind of glimpsed him out of the corner of my eye from a distance and was like, yeah, we should probably get out of here. I don't know what's going on, because he is an unbelievably intimidating presence.
Yeah, I just picture the motif music for Debo and Friday, just following him every time I see him. That's my bike, punk. You know what I mean? Just the intimidation factor of an Aaron Donald. But real quick, got this question from Toby Little Rams. Can Matthew Stafford win the MVP next season? Well, currently through FanDuel, he has the 11th best odds to win the MVP. Last season, 15 games, 3,965 yards. That was 11th. 24 touchdowns. That was 11th. 15th in QB rating, 5th in QBR. Me personally, I don't think that's important for the Rams for Matthew Stafford to win the MVP, because if he wins MVP, they'll probably tell me that the running game isn't where it needs to be. The defense might not be where it needs to be. So can it happen? Sure. But will it happen? I hope it doesn't, because, look, I want him to have a great season, but I want a balanced attack. I think it's going to prolong his career.
Yeah, I like the point about the dual threat, right? The running game being a big part of what the Rams do offensively as well. But let's try to have it both ways, right? Let's hope that the running game is a part of it, but Matthew Stafford puts together one of those years that we've seen him have before in Detroit, where the numbers are just bonkers. And here's the part that has to be a part of any MVP conversation. You have to be on one of the best teams. Right. The reason Lamar Jackson was the MVP is because they were the number one seed in the AFC. The reason that Brock Purdy was getting NFC, or I should say MVP consideration, was because his team was the number one seed in the NFC. That if you have the best team, you're the quarterback of the best team, and your numbers are somewhere between good to great, you're going to get MVP consideration. So if Matthew Stafford and the Rams are knocking around a top seed and he's throwing touchdown passes all over the place, even if it's not, Dan Marino or prime Matthew Stafford numbers, he's got a chance for sure. I wouldn't pick him as you got to pick one guy who it's going to be, but the value that you're talking about, plus a team that's expected to be good, a team that does put up numbers, and a team that's expected to win a lot, sure. I can see a world where it would come together.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that many players in the history of the NFL that have won the MVP and the Super Bowl in the same season. A lot of times we see the MVP peak a little early, looking at you, Lamar Jackson, and then you see players that, look, they don't peak at the right time. So I just want to see Matthew Stafford peak at the right time, just kind of have a really solid to great year. We know he can make all the throws, right? We know he's an MVP caliber arm, but I just want to see him win Super Bowl MVP a little more. By the way, we're not getting into the weeds on that one. We know he should definitely deserve strong consideration. So that's what I want to see. But hey, the good thing is he's in this conversation. The good thing is that's how we're feeling about our quarterback heading into the season. The fact that we're even having this conversation says a lot, and what a difference a year makes. So Matthew Stafford, if you win MVP, I'd be stoked, but give me Super Bowl MVP. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And as always, you can follow the people champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.